Week 8 is in the books, and you either dominated or got dominated this week. That's how many big performances we had in Week 8 of Fantasy Football. We are here to break all of it down on today's episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast. Welcome in Lucas Wenzel, Cameron Lawrence, hanging out with you on Halloween. Happy Halloween.
Woo!
Cameron, what'd you go as for Halloween this year?
I went as Tyler's biggest enemy after I destroyed him this week in fantasy football.
Clever costume. How'd you dress up?
As myself.
As your I went to, my wife had to work this weekend, unfortunately, so we didn't get to go out and do anything fun, but her brother hosted a Halloween party, and because I am a thrifty guy and I didn't want to go out and waste money on a Halloween costume, I threw on my red and black plaid flannel shirt.
Ooh.
I tucked it into some nice dark wash navy jeans, threw on a brown belt, carried a roll of paper towels with me. Can you guess what I was?
Paul Bunyan?
The brownie,
Oh.
Yes, Paul Bunyan, the brownie paper towel man. Everyone thought I was a lumberjack at first, but then I showed them the paper towels.
Paper towels. I thought you were going with axe there. That's what I thought you were.
Oh, I could. Oh, yeah.
Because Paul Bunyan was all I could think with the flannel and the jeans. And that was once you said that, that's all I could think.
Then I wrote an ox into the party. You
yes,
would
exactly.
believe the scene that I created.
Exactly. The wife went as a tree.
She from work.
Yep, exactly.
Just as a tree into work from afar. Happy Halloween. We hope you had a safe and fun weekend celebrating the holiday. And if you are celebrating today as well, we wish you a happy Halloween.
Yes,
but we're going to break down 10 trending or ending players from Week 8 of action. If you're not subscribed to the podcast already, make sure you do that. Turn on the notification so you know when our new episodes come out as soon as they're released. And if you wouldn't mind leaving us a nice little review as well, boost us up the podcast rankings. We greatly appreciate your support over there. And if you're watching on YouTube, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, turn on that notification bell. Again, you'll be alerted when all of our new videos are up, and not just podcasts like this. YouTube videos, shorts every single day. We have so much content coming out, so make sure you subscribe. Make sure you turn on that notification bell as well. Cameron, let's just dive on in to the 10 players that are trending and ending from Week 8. We'll start with 5 trending, 5 ending, a little break in between. Let's get to it. You'll notice Ty isn't with us tonight, and as Cameron said, he is hiding because of shame. That he got absolutely walloped by Cameron in our Dynasty League this week. So, Ty, it's okay. We miss you, but also you really didn't have to skip out. Like it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. So if you guys want to send him just shameful DMs, you probably should.
Tyler_Platt on Twitter if you want to do that. Yeah, give him all the grief in the world. We'll start with 5 trending players. I'll cover 3, Cameron, you'll cover 2, and we'll flip the script on the ending players. But I think we have to start with the man himself, Ceedee Lamb, this week. We are back.
Yes,
we
sir.
are so back. 41 fantasy points on the week. Currently, at the time of this recording, we're recording on Monday night, but assuming Amon-Ra St. Brown doesn't go absolutely nuts, or Devontae Adams doesn't go absolutely nuts on Monday Night Football, he is currently the wide receiver 1 on the week. Season high 14 targets, 12 receptions for 158, and 2 touchdowns on the day. This was the hyper utilization we have been expecting and waiting for all season long. We knew Brandon Cooks would get mixed in a little bit, but really it's like Brandon Cooks and Michael Gallup are fighting for wide receiver 2, and Ceedee Lamb is just on an island by himself. But believe it or not, this was only the second time this season that he's had more than 7 targets in the game. And before Week 8, he only had 2 top 12 finishes, only 3 inside of the top 24. Ceedee Lamb had been a disappointment up to this point, but now he's currently the wide receiver 9 at PPR formats after this massive week. And what really helped were those 2 touchdowns, because prior to that, he'd only caught 1 before this week. So I was absolutely thrilled to see the usage get filtered back to Ceedee Lamb, to see this offense turning back and running through their best playmaker on the team. It was a joy to see, and I really hope this is here to stay, because Ceedee Lamb for me is trending after this week, after they absolutely walloped absolutely wallop the Los Angeles Rams. This has to be a sign of things to come. Because if you can put up 43 points by just feeding Ceedee Lamb the football, and the Rams have been good against wide receivers this year. That's the other thing we have to keep in mind.
Yeah.
It's not like the Rams have been like, you look at their secondary and you're kind of like, who's out there? But they've been buttoned up against wide receivers. But Ceedee Lamb went out and showed the world what he's capable of. And this, to me, should be a sign of things to come.
Yeah, back-to-back top 12 finishes. I just want to read his schedule for the rest of the year because it is pretty juicy. He's at Philly, but Philly hasn't been great against the pass. They got torched again by Washington.
Easy,
three different players. Then he plays the Giants, who just got rid of one of their best pass rushers, best guy in the middle. Then they get Carolina, who the only reason they're good against the pass is because they're really, really bad against the run.
Right.
Washington, Seattle, Philly again. And then in the fantasy championship, he gets Buffalo, Miami, and Detroit, who have none of those three have been really that great against the pass. So he's got a very good exploitable schedule coming up rest of the season. And like you said, I mean, seeing 14 targets, I don't think that's something that's just going to be out of the norm. I don't think that's going to be the anomaly when we look back at the end of the year. No,
I don't think it will be either. I think that stretch of 4 games where he saw 5 or 6, 7, 6 targets. I think we're going to look back and say, man, what happened those 3 weeks? Because Ceedee Lamb, they're finally going to start feeding him the ball 8, 9, 10, 11 times a game, just like they should be week in and week out. He is back, and he is trending for me after week 8. Cameron, your first trending player after week 8 also got a crap load of targets.
14.
And this is what you and I were expecting at the start of the season. Who was your first trending player after week 8?
Yeah, it's Trey McBride. You're right. At the beginning of the season, me and you were all in on Trey McBride. We thought that he was going to be the tight end 1 in this offense. Ty was correct that Zach Ertz was still relevant even after his injury, but Ertz is out again in his first game out. Trey McBride puts up 10 receptions on 14 targets, which as a tight end, unless your name is Travis Kelce, is insane.
It's insane.
95 yards and a touchdown. He's a tight end 1. I don't know if you saw that touchdown he had, but he carried pretty much the entire team into the end zone. Like I said, Ertz is out another 3 games at least, meaning, we get Trey McBride as a tight end 1 for sure. And we could see Trey McBride, really take over this role even after Zach Ertz returns. He's been the tight end 5 over the last 3 weeks. That's with Zach Ertz playing, averaging just under 14 fantasy points per game. And the Cardinals as a team have the 3rd most targets to the tight end position, behind only surprise Kansas City, and of course our favorite Jonnu Smith's Atlanta Falcons. And so, they have designed plays for the tight end. They just get them involved. And we have Kyler Murray coming back probably in the next maybe week or so, 2 weeks. So this offense should just continue to get better. And yeah, I see this continuing for Trey McBride. I don't see this as a one-off. I see this as Trey McBride's entering in maybe that like Sam Laporta type range, at least for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, I do want to play a name game with Trey McBride because I think he's going to be a hot name off of waivers this week. I'll give myself a pat on the back. He was my tight end stash candidate in my weekly video for Fantasy Pros this week. So add another one to the hit list this year. I'm proud of myself for how those have been coming through this year because it's tough to name stashes when they don't really perform. And when you get the few that just like have a 20-point game, you're like, oh yes, I have to reward that one. But I might have missed this, but Kyler Murray's going to be coming back as well. So you're getting an upgrade from Josh Dobbs at quarterback to Kyler Murray. I mean, things are looking up for Trey McBride, but the question is, what are you going to do with Trey McBride over the rest of the season, really? Because I find it hard to believe Zach Ertz comes back and siphons work from Trey McBride, maybe like a little bit, but nothing compared to the split that they were seeing before, right? Like Trey McBride, I think, is here to stay. So let's talk about that. Who would you rather have rest of the season? Let's start with the person you brought up, Sam Laporta or Trey McBride. Who would you rather have rest of the season?
I think I'm going to stick with Laporta.
I would as well. I think his role is more cemented. I think there's less variance in the Detroit Lions offense. And Sam Laporta has also been great. Currently the tight end 5 on the year. Let's see here. How about Evan Ingram or Trey McBride?
I think that's a really good question. I think I still lean Ingram, but I do think that is one where I think McBride could outscore him come into the season with especially when you consider Zay Jones coming back and just how many targets are going to be needed in that offense.
Yeah, that's the big question for me is how is Zay Jones going to impact the usage of Evan Ingram? I want to check how many targets Evan Ingram had this last week, but he had 3 straight games of at least 7 targets without Zay Jones. And I'm pulling up his game log here from this last week. And wouldn't you know, he saw 10 targets this last week and caught all 10 of them. So, yeah, I mean, as long as Zay Jones is out, I think I'd rather take Evan Ingram. I think the floor is safer. But, potentially Trey McBride has more upside given less weapons in that Arizona Cardinals offense right now. Definitely. Let's see here. Who's another name that I want to bring up? Cole Kmet, tight end 7 on the year.
I would rather have Trey McBride.
I would as well.
Moving forward. The one I think is interesting, I want to hear your thoughts with Kirk Cousins being out is TJ Hawkinson. I know we'll talk about him later in this episode, but would you rather for me personally, I'll just throw this out. I think you continue to ride with TJ Hawkinson, just knowing how good he is, knowing that a backup quarterback is probably going to target the tight end. But I do think it starts to become an interesting conversation with no Kirk in that offense.
I'm going to take TJ Hawkinson because Tom Brady is going to be a Minnesota Viking. So no questions asked. I'd rather have TJ Hawkinson. No. I'll jokes aside, I really do want Tom Brady to sign with the Vikings. I would. Oh my goodness, that would be phenomenal. No, I'm still going to ride with TJ Hawkinson because no matter who it is, I always say that the tight end is a backup quarterback's best friend. Yeah. It's the easy check down over the middle. It's a safety blanket. You don't have to worry about them trying to hit deep on the outside. Like TJ Hawkinson is going to get so many over the middle passes, so many dump offs. I think the volume is going to be there for TJ Hawkinson, even though the efficiency will probably be, dirt poor, like 6.5, 7 yards of reception. Compared to McBride, who, my gosh, his yards per route run is insane. He's been top 5 at the position since week 5. I think I would still rather lean with Hawkinson.
Yeah, I think you have to.
Just given the nature of the Minnesota Vikings offense, I think you have to. Last name I will bring up, assuming he's healthy, maybe it's, you know what? Here, I'm going to triple check one player's stats here. I'm sorry, this is probably super boring for the people. Dallas Goedert or Trey McBride?
That's a really good one. I think I still lean Goedert, but if I was, if I have Goedert, I would be okay trading Goedert for McBride plus. Yeah. I think that's a trade I would look to make.
You just look at Goddard this year. Look, the targets have been there 7, 7, 4, 9, 8, 5, 7. If you look at the fantasy points, 8.2, 9.1, 4.5. There you go, 25.7, 9.2, 18.7, but then back down to 7.6. So you're not getting much consistency from Dallas Goedert. I don't know. You're probably not going to get that level of consistency with Trey McBride either. So yeah, I wouldn't blame you if you go out and got a wide receiver, like a fringe wide receiver 2 plus Trey McBride for Dallas Goedert, and like a fringe wide receiver 3. I would do that. I would definitely go do that and upgrade at wide receiver, even though you may seemingly get a downgrade at tight end.
For sure.
Let's move on. The next trending players that I definitely want to talk about, and I say players because, look, Will Levis, Banana Man, Mr. Mayo Coffee, he might be him. Like I could not believe what I saw this weekend from Will Levis. It seemed like this just a disaster waiting to happen. Oh yeah, we'll roll out both Will Levis and Malik Willis this weekend. You'll see both of them on the field. It was true. The problem was Malik Willis, his first snap, he fumbled, and not first snap, second snap, excuse me. He fumbled, and not even a second. Sorry. Early on in the game, Malik Willis, I'm thinking he didn't throw a pass attempt. He had 2 carries. But early on in the game, Malik Willis fumbled, baffled. My goodness, fumbled his. My mind is all over the place. Fumbled his first snap. Oh my gosh. Look, Malik Willis wasn't good. Will Levis was. All right. I'm moving on. 19 of 29 for 238 and 4. 26.62 fantasy points on the day for Will Levis. As that stands right now, quarterback 6 on the week. And DeAndre Hopkins, my goodness, he was the biggest beneficiary. I was surprised he only had 4 receptions. It seemed like he was much more involved in that, but that's because he found the end zone 3 times on those 4 receptions. Saw 6 targets, 128 yards. Currently the wide receiver 2 behind Ceedee Lamb on the week for 34.8. And here's the thing about Will Levis that I'm at least encouraged by. That dude played fearless on Sunday. Now, it wasn't pretty. I'll tell you that right now. If you actually go back and watch Will Levis, he still made some pretty poor anticipation throws. He left the ball behind on DeAndre Hopkins' 3rd touchdown. He actually threw behind DeAndre Hopkins, but it's D-Hop. Wherever you put it within the frame of his body, he's going to catch it. But he still left the ball behind on some receivers, and he only had a 36.6% success rate. That was 26th on the week. Now, if you don't know what success rate is, essentially it's can you pick up 50% of the yards on 1st or 2nd down, and then can you convert to get a 1st down on 3rd and 4th down. So he's 26th in actually converting into 1st downs or gaining that yardage on 1st and 2nd down. But again, despite all that, this dude was fearless. His average throw depth was 11.8 yards. That was 2nd highest at the quarterback position this past week. And he averaged 8.2 yards per attempt, which was the 9th best on the week. Both of those I pulled from Josh Larkey on Twitter, the 33rd team. So I think this could be great for DeAndre Hopkins' value moving forward if Levis continues to just be fearless and push the ball downfield. But I'm also not going to be surprised if Levis's rookie mistakes start to make themselves clear in the coming weeks, right? Like if it's like painfully obvious that Will Levis is looking like a rookie, I'm not going to be surprised by that either. But like let's celebrate. They're both trending. This looks great for DeAndre Hopkins if they continue to push the ball downfield. And frankly, like we called DeAndre Hopkins a sit this week. Like I know I say we because I know you made the video, but I was with you. I'm like DeAndre Hopkins. I want nothing to do with him if Will Levis is in the ballgame. But look, I'm happy to hold an L on this one because Will Levis is thriving, and it's when players succeed in the NFL, we want to root for them. Like we're not out here just trying to be like just jerks about it. It's like, Will Levis, man, why doesn't he stink? He should stink, man. It's like, no, like we'll give reports on what we see and what we anticipate. But look, if we're wrong because a player is thriving, I'm never going to be upset about that. Like, good for them, man. Yeah. So as of right now, they are both trending. And look, I hope they both continue to thrive because D-Hop is a special player. And like, good on Will Levis for proving a lot of people wrong at the start of the draft. If he continues to thrive, that he should have belonged in that top 5 picks, which he was projected to go in, right up till draft time.
Yeah, I think it's Will Levis. If you want to stash him, as a quarterback position and like a super flex or something, other than that, I don't think he's a fantasy option quite yet. Right. But I do think, because they're still talking, depending on how he does in this Pittsburgh game, they might go back to Tannehill in week 10. So, nothing's given. With D-Hop, I don't want to just come out and say he's a sell high, right? I don't want to say he had 3 touchdowns all of a sudden he's a sell high. But if you got someone who went, did you see how magical that was? D-Hop, is a fringe top 12 wide receiver, then he's a sell high, right? It depends where they're going to value him moving forward. But, if he's got Will Levis, I think he has way more upside than he does with Ryan Tannehill. I think he could be a mid-level wide receiver too. But that's also going to come with those headache games, right? We saw with Will Levis, a couple of these touchdowns were, broken coverages, which is going to happen. And Will Levis has the arm strength to kind of make those throws. But he's also, like we said, a rookie who's jumping in the middle of the season. There's going to be those games where you're like, how did you throw 4 interceptions there? And it's because he's a rookie and he's, getting into it. So, there's going to be some give and take with this moving forward.
Yeah, I for now though, we're gonna say they're trending. Yeah, because I think this is a sign of things to potentially come. And again, DeAndre Hopkins has the matchups coming up as well. Yeah, it's not like he has a bad schedule coming up. Right. So it's not like he has a bad schedule coming up where Will Levis, will absolutely flop. But again, he's prone to make rookie mistakes. Those are prone to show themselves. But this is looking good as of right now. It's looking a lot better than it was with Ryan Tannehill. Cameron, I'll kick it back to you. Your second trending group of players for the week.
Yeah, I was going to say just Josh Downs here, but it's actually been both the Colts wide receivers. Both of them have been playing really well over the last 4 games. I think 3 of Gardner Minshew, I think, has been starting 2 or 3 of those games. I don't remember now. 2 of those games. Yep. 2 of those games. But Josh Downs, 13 plus in each game. Pittman has had 16 plus over the last 3 weeks. And both of them, like I said, double-digit points every week over the last 4 games for both of them. This was an offense, I'll admit, we were a little bit down on, especially from a passing aspect. Michael Pittman, it was Josh Downs maybe could get a role, but we're not expecting a lot. And both of them have been great. Pittman is the wide receiver 11 over the last 4 weeks, and Downs the wide receiver 10. Like they're, if you drafted either of them, you're very excited, about what's coming for, everything to come. You're excited about what you've seen on the field. Pittman is leading the two between targets. I think it's 38-29 Pittman, but he only has one more reception than Downs, and Downs has more yards, and they both have 2 touchdowns over the last 4 weeks. So they're both producing. They both, I think, play a little bit different, right? Pittman's that bigger target. He's size-wise going to be a little bit closer to a tight end. I'm not calling, he's still got speed and stuff. I'm not calling him a tight end, but he's bigger, whereas Josh Downs is going to be the sneaky slot guy who's going to get in and out of cuts quick. And they got Carolina and New England over the next 2 games before their bye, which I know isn't, great jump off the page matchups, but they're not defenses that are going to shut this team down, right? I mean, we've seen it against the Saints and the Browns in the last 2 games where Indianapolis has been able to move the ball a little bit against, and those are 2 of the better defenses they'll face. So I really think they're relatively matchup proof moving forward. And, I think for sure Pittman's a wide receiver 2, and Downs is probably a high end flex, every week moving forward, at least in my book.
Yeah, I think Downs is definitely moving into that high flex territory because at this point you can't deny the volume, and he's getting the yardage with that volume now, which is what we failed to see over the first few weeks. So no, I'm 100% with you. Josh Downs, Michael Pittman is a wide receiver 2 at this point. No questions asked, like locked in wide receiver 2, which is what you drafted him to be. And our fear was like, I don't know, is he more of a fringe wide receiver 2? Is he going to hover more in that wide receiver, 27, 28 range? But clearly he's outperformed that. And Josh Downs is now in that wide receiver 27, 28 range every single week. So yeah, I think based on volume alone, based on Minshew's, just efficiency, I think you just keep riding those 2.
Yeah, you got to at this point.
At this point, you just keep riding them, right? You lock them into your lineup, and you don't really think twice about it. Maybe Josh Downs, you have a few more questions on, but I think Pittman has to be in your lineup more weeks than not, right? I'll wrap up the trending players here, and I'll keep this one short and sweet because I think it comes with a little bit of a caveat, but Taysom Hill is the last player I want to talk about here. I thought Taysom Hill was a temporary trend with Juwan Johnson being out the last 2 weeks, but I actually think his role might sneaky be here to stay because in week 6, look, he served as the primary receiving tight end. He drew 8 targets that week, caught 7 of those, right? Which definitely boosted his production. But now over the last 2 weeks, he has 3 rushing touchdowns, including 9 rushing attempts in week 8 this last week. So like instead of putting the ball into Jamal Williams' gut or, trying to force Kendre Miller into being something, which every time Kendre Miller has touched the ball this year, I'm like, what? Just not impressed at all. Dare I say, very Alexander Madison-esque. So, like instead of putting the ball into either of those 2 players' hands, Taysom Hill, here you go. Go ahead and bulldoze 5 defenders on your way to an 8-yard gain. And as we saw, Taysom Hill looks like he looks like an oversized running back at this point. Like, did you caught his 20-yard touchdown run?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was a beautiful cutback that he had, and it just looked like he was just born to play running back as just an oversized guy. So, look, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's certainly not a bad strategy if you can just deploy Taysom Hill inside of the 15-yard line. So here you go, get us 7 yards. Oh, here you go, get us 8 yards and get us into the end zone. That might be here to stay. Like, if I'm the New Orleans Saints, like, what do defenses do to stop this man? He's a tank. He's a human tank. So, look, he's definitely a stash. I don't know if he's a weekly play. Like, it's just so volatile because the week you slot him in is the week he's going to give you, 0.2 points, right? He's going to give you, a carry for -2 yards. He'll get stuffed at the line or something. I don't know what it would be, but the week you start him will be the week he flops. But I don't know, man. Based on how Jamal Williams and Kendre Miller have been looking, like it might be Taysom Hill in the short yardage and red zone situations.
Yeah, I mean, Hill is exactly what we thought that Jamal Williams was going to be in this offense, right? He's taken those goal line carries. We knew Kamara was, he gets some, but he's not their goal
he
line.
scored in the red zone this last week.
Exactly. But Dennis Allen doesn't seem to, over the last 2 years, want to use Alvin Kamara as much in the red zone. And so they're going to give the ball to Taysom Hill, and he's shown, you can also line him up a wide receiver, and also he'll get at tight end, he'll get 8 targets. Then maybe he'll throw a pass. He's just a guy that, if you're really at the bottom of the barrel, tight end wise, you're bouncing between like Noah Fant and Gerald Everett every single week.
Taysom Hill.
You might as well throw in Taysom Hill because, he has a bad week. He scores you 3 points. Well, that's probably only 4 points less than what you're getting from, the bottom of the barrel tight end guys anyways. But then you have the upside of hitting that 25 point week. So Taysom Hill every single year, we're like, it's just a fad. It's going to come for a couple weeks and then it never goes away. So at this point, you might as well, if they're using him like this, buy into it.
Kyle Pitts or Taysom Hill?
That's such a disgusting question.
Isn't it? It's so bad.
I
mean, the epitome is when Arthur Smith uses a tight end 2 to throw to the tight end 3 while the tight end 1 blocks. Like, I don't know what you're supposed to do with Kyle Pitts.
If Heineke, man, I think I still lean Kyle Pitts, but wow, that is a gross question. I mean, I'm going to say Kyle Pitts, but I'm probably wrong is the thing, So
if I'm a Kyle Pitts manager, I would just rather trade Kyle Pitts and get whatever I can out of him. And then just be like, oh, well, I guess I have to play Taysom Hill now. That's how I'd be looking at it. Cameron, let's take a quick break. We'll be back with some ending players after week 8. Today's podcast episode is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Now, we love Underdog. It is the easiest place to play best ball formats, and they even have their own form of player props called Pick'em. You can make up to 20 times your money on a single night by correlating props together. 2 picks will triple your money, 3 will 6 times it, 4 will 10 times it, and 5 plays that all hit will multiply your entry by 20. You can even place insurance on your picks too, so if only 4 of your 5 props hit, you still get 10 times your entry. And if you use our code FELLAS when signing up, Underdog is going to double your first deposit up to $100. Alrighty, we are back. We talked about 5 trending players. Technically, I think it ended up being 8 by the time you lumped in Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, Will Levis, DeAndre Hopkins, something like that. At any rate, we talked about trending players. Now let's talk some ending players after week 8, Cameron. And you're going to take the 3 on this round. Who's your first ending player after week 8?
It is heartbreaking to have to say this. This is the worst segment we could have ever had. Way to start it, but it's the Minnesota Vikings weapons: Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson. I mean, you can probably lump the running backs in there because of Kirk Cousins being out. If you play fantasy football, if you watch the NFL, you've probably heard by now, out for the season with an Achilles tear. Kirk, I put out a tweet comparing him and Patrick Mahomes. Kirk is leading Patrick Mahomes in attempts, completion percentage, touchdowns, and interceptions, yards and interceptions this season. It wasn't to compare Kirk Cousins to, I'm not saying Kirk Cousins is better than Patrick Mahomes, but it's just showing what the Vikings are losing by Kirk Cousins going out. Kirk Cousins is first in attempts, completions, and touchdowns on the season, second in yards, and top 10 in completion percentage. From a quarterback perspective, you can't Carson Wentz, probably their best option, and he's not really, but but that type realistic. That type of player, and he's not. That's not replacing Kirk. They're not going to be able to throw the ball 40 times and complete 70% of them and put up 3 touchdowns a game. That's just not going to happen. And when you have 3 players like Jefferson, Jordan Addison now, and Hawkinson, who really demand a 25. Jefferson 30% target share, the piece of the pie is really going to start to shrink. It's really going to feel small. You're just not going to get the same efficiency that we've been seeing. And the biggest thing is we don't know what this offense looks like without Kirk. We don't know what the Vikings look like without Kirk. He just hasn't missed time over the last, what has he been here? 4 years now? 5 years?
5 years, yeah.
5 years. And so we don't know what Justin Jefferson looks like without Kirk Cousins. We don't obviously know what Jordan Addison looks like without Kirk. We don't know in the role that Hawkinson's in what he looks like. So there's just a lot of unknowns going forward. And unfortunately, it feels a little bit like that Garrett Wilson in New York situation. I don't know if Jefferson, I think, is a better wide receiver than a Garrett Wilson,
Yeah.
obviously. So I don't think he falls, he's also in the wide receiver 20, but I don't think Jefferson can be in that Tyreek Hill, AJ Brown right now, Jamar Chase conversation without Kirk Cousins. I think he falls more into the Ceedee Lamb conversation, that just that next step down where he's still great, but he's going to be more prone to have those 5-point weeks. Whereas, with Kirk Cousins, you're pretty much locked into a 16 plus a week. So I just think that all those guys kind of take at least a step down. Jordan Addison might take 2 steps down depending on who's running the show. I mean, if it's Jaron Hall, then it's going to be really hard for Jordan Addison to find a role with both Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson in there. So I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts, because that's just something I've been thinking about. And there's not really a ton of stats, that we can go off of what this is going to look like moving forward.
There's only one man who could come in and actually maintain their. You laugh because you already know who it is. There's only one man in my mind who can actually come back and who can actually come back and maintain relevance. Again, maybe not wide receiver 1 overall for Justin Jefferson, and maybe not top 24 for Jordan Addison. But if the Vikings somehow coax Tom Brady out of retirement, this is me.
Lucas
trying
getting
to
himself so
manifest
excited
my
about this.
dream. I am trying to I was talking to for those of you who don't know, fantasy football isn't actually our full-time job currently. But I was talking to my supervisor today and explaining this whole thing, and I'm like, there's only one person. It's Tom Brady. And if you don't know this about me, I am a massive Tom Brady fan. Tom Brady was one of the reasons I fell in love with NFL football all the way back in the 3rd grade. So I love Tom Brady. And if he suits up in purple and gold, I think he can maintain, top 5 status for Justin Jefferson, just with working with a pass heavy offense like Kevin O'Connell. Who would you say is a better offensive coordinator, Byron Leftwich or Kevin O'Connell?
Kevin O'Connell.
I would lean Kevin O'Connell. Byron Leftwich did great things down Tampa Bay with Tom Brady, but I would lean towards Kevin O'Connell just with what he's been able to do with Matthew Stafford late in his career, with Cooper Kupp, and now coming over to Minnesota and doing that with Justin Jefferson. I think just Tom Brady's intellect for the game would continue to elevate these receivers with Jefferson, Hawkinson. I don't know if Addison would necessarily be top 24, and I don't know if Jefferson would be guaranteed top 5. Because it's not like Tom Brady looked like Tom Brady of old, and Tom Brady looked old, I should say, in his final season, but he's the only guy I would have any sort of confidence in to maintain this elite status of these Minnesota Vikings weapons right now. You bring in a guy like Carson Wentz, I agree. But you said Carson Wentz, but honestly, you're right. He's probably their best available option right now. That wouldn't cost them draft capital to go out and trade for a quarterback, unless if it's a Trey Lance, if you just want to shoot pure upside there. That'd be the only other guy I'd really consider trading for. But Carson Wentz is out there. He doesn't do much for me, right? Jefferson,
exactly.
A top 10 guy. Yeah. Addison, I think he kind of falls to the wide receiver 3, mid wide receiver 3 range. Hawkinson, I think he's still going to be a top 10 guy. It's not hard to be top 10, but yeah, no, you're 100% right. Without Kirk Cousins, this offense takes a hit. And frankly, on the Minnesota Vikings, I just let Jaron Hall play. I just keep that draft pick. Let's keep rising up closer to that number 1 pick. And there's a great class of quarterbacks coming in. Don't think you'll tank all the way to get Caleb Williams, but May, Bo Nix, nice group of quarterbacks in this draft class. And the Minnesota Vikings do need a young quarterback to enter into the future with. And it could be a guy from this draft class. So look, if the Vikings sucks for fantasy football, but I'd probably just ride out the season with Jaron Hall and just look towards the future with whoever you can get in the draft. So it sucks for fantasy football this year. Now we're getting into our own Vikings fandom, but in terms of fantasy football, I think you're spot on. All these guys take a hit unless if a guy like Tom Brady, the greatest of all time, comes in to try and make one last run at a Super Bowl.
So we got some rumors swirling on Twitter right now.
Shut up.
Jonathan
Gannon. How soon?
Jonathan Gannon just came out, said that Clayton Tune or Kyler Murray are going to be starting next week for Arizona. And so rumors are swirling. There's nothing confirmed. There's no one who actually knows anything saying it, but a lot of people wondering if that means Josh Dobbs is headed to the Minnesota Vikings. just because it doesn't make a lot of sense.
No.
That is completely rumor. It'll probably look stupid tomorrow for saying it, but that does go back for at least Trey McBride, that he will be seeing Clayton Tune or Kyler Murray, and you are definitely hoping for Kyler Murray if you are a Cardinals fan.
Oh gosh.
That is a complete rumor. That is like, there is nothing substantiating that Josh Dobbs would be on his way to Arizona. That is just people asking the question of why Josh Dobbs would not be in consideration for starting.
Oh my gosh. If the Minnesota Vikings go out and trade for Josh Dobbs and not like Trey Lance, I'd rather just give the Cowboys back what they get traded for Trey Lance. What, the 4th round pick? Is that what they gave up for Trey Lance? I'd just give him a 4th and I'll take Trey Lance.
Yeah.
Assuming he's granted, Trey Lance has been out. Is he dealing with an injury, or has he just been a healthy scratch?
Probably a healthy scratch. I think what's his name? Will Greer took over that backup role.
Oof. All right, tough. Anyways, we'll keep it moving. We've chatted about the Vikings long enough. My first ending player, I talked about him a little bit, mostly comparing Justin Jefferson, what Kevin O'Connell previously did with the Los Angeles Rams. But look, Kirk Cousins done for the season. Matthew Stafford also banged up this week. No fractures on his thumb. We got that report today, but like Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, like they're ending for me. Now, again, like, let's be clear. When we talk about ending players, it doesn't mean they're going to suck the rest of the season. It means their current outlook isn't too bright. So that either means one of two things. You can probably sell them while you still get the chance. You can buy low on them because they soon will be trending. Or you just kind of have to hold on them because they're just going to stink the rest of the season. I don't think Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua fall into that category. I also don't know if they're buy lows either, but I'm also not trying to sell them right now. So basically they're just holds for me. They're kind of forced into it because they've been great. And the Rams, they got shellacked on Sunday. And with Stafford getting injured, that's just the biggest takeaway and concern for me. Because they both were still plenty involved. I mean, Kupp saw 10 targets, 100% of the snaps. Puka Nacua, 7 targets, 92% of the snaps. It's just that Stafford is going to miss time. And Brett Ripien isn't exactly the guy I want to hand my offense to and entrust him to get these two wide receivers the football. I just don't. I don't trust that. Sure, you could say, like, yeah, Cooper Kupp, safety blanket. He's always open. Easy completions. Sure, but, like, to what effect, though? Right? Like, to what effect? I don't like, they're not ending because they're not going to be involved. I think they still will be. It's just the quality of their quarterback play is just going to impact them too much. Again, we see Cooper Kupp go from this top 5 guy to top 10 now, and Puka Nacua goes from this top 12 guy to top 24. Like, I think he takes a big hit here. Because I don't think Brett Ripien just has the ability of Matthew Stafford to spread the ball out wherever he wants. But yeah, those two guys are ending for me. I'm not too optimistic on them while Matthew Stafford is out, and it appears he's going to miss probably, my guess would be 2 to 3 weeks.
So the good thing for the Rams is, so they just listed Stafford as day-to-day with a UCL sprain. He is gonna miss, or he is trending to miss this game, but he obviously could play. Matthew Stafford is one of those guys.
That's fair. Yeah,
he will play through everything. They do have a bye then the week after, so
oh sure, yeah.
So he potentially could, miss just one game and have close to 2 full weeks off. I mean, obviously, if Brett Ripien plays this next week, it has to be a downgrade. It does. I mean, you just can't replace, like, Matthew Stafford's a guy you just can't replace with anybody. But I still have the optimism in Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. If I see Brett Ripien's playing this week, I might, let him play Cooper Kupp and let him play with Brett Ripien, and then go try and buy low on Cooper Kupp the week after, just because we know how talented, for sure, Cooper Kupp is. Puka, I mean, he's extremely talented. He's not on the same level that Cooper Kupp is, but that's because there's maybe 3 or 4 receivers who are. So I don't know. I have, I think, a little more optimism moving forward than maybe you do, but I'm not like slotting them in as my top 5 wide receiver this week.
I just get so worried every time a quarterback injures anything on their throwing hand. Because after we saw, Russell Wilson, what was that, 2 years ago, where he injured his index finger, and granted, different injury, but he comes back and he's just not slinging the ball the same.
Yeah.
So, like, I just got a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth still from that season. where, quarterbacks come back, it might just not come off the hand the same right away.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, Matthew Stafford is, tough as a nail. Dude will literally play through, dislocated shoulder and still chuck the ball, 25 times. So like Stafford, I think is different in that way, but I mean, for now, I do think you're right on the strategy of, I think Brett Rippon will probably play this week. You give Matt Stafford some rest through the bye. It wouldn't surprise me if he comes back in week 10 then, or week 11, excuse me.
Week 11, yep.
And then, during their week 10 bye, you go buy low on Cooper Kupp, but
for sure.
I mean, for right now, until we get a confirmation of how long Matt Stafford's actually going to be out, they're on the downswing for me, and I'm not looking forward to. my hopes are pretty low if I play them with Brett Rippon at quarterback. Cameron, your second ending player after week 8.
It's Chris Olave, and you want to talk about a guy who's been really disappointing. It is definitely Chris Olave. He's had one top 15 finish on the year, only 3 top 20 finishes in 8 games. He is the wide receiver 50 since week 4. And Lucas, we're going to talk about since week 4, so in the last 5 weeks. I'm going to give you a player, and I want you to tell me if they've scored more points than Chris Olave or if they've scored less points than Chris Olave. Let's start with Jerry Jeudy.
Oh gosh,
we're talking points per game, by the way. So
yeah,
and
I am going to take Jerry Jeudy because again, we talked about last week. Jerry Judy's been the definition of 5 for 55, right? Chris Olave's been all over the place.
Chris Olave actually has 0.3 points more per game than Jerry Jeudy.
Oh my gosh.
Tyler Boyd.
Tyler Boyd had a massive week this last week. And he did have another big game without T. Higgins. So I'm actually going to say Tyler Boyd there.
Tyler Boyd scoring 2 more points per game. Amari Cooper.
Oh, they both have been awful. I can't remember what Amari Cooper's done. This last week wasn't phenomenal. Week prior, I think was decent. I'm going to say Chris Olave, but I'm not going to be surprised when you tell me Amari Cooper.
It is Chris Olave by 0.4 points per game.
Okay, yeah, that's about what I thought. Yeah.
Christian Watson.
I just looked at his stats today. 11 fantasy points, 6 and 8. I'm going to, it's probably Christian Watson by like 0.1, but I'm going to say Chris Olave because I do think it's Chris Olave.
It is Chris Olave. Jahan Dotson.
Oh gosh. I mean, Dotson had what, a 30-point week, 28-point week this week. I don't remember what he had last week, but he's had a massive target share. But so is Olave. I'm going to say Olave, but watch, it's going to be Dotson, isn't it?
It is Dotson by over a point. Calvin Ridley.
By over a point?
By over a point per game. Calvin Ridley.
Oh my gosh. 2 20-point games in the last 4 weeks. I will say that's Calvin Ridley.
It is Calvin Ridley. We got 2 left. We will go with Jonathan Mingo.
Oh gosh, that's super ugly. I'll say Chris Olave, but that's probably really close, isn't it?
Yeah, by 0.6 points per game more.
Oh my gosh.
And then our last one is JSN.
JSN's been on a heater, man. For all those of you who watched our 5-0 video that I made and told me that buying low on JSN was an idiotic move because you could get him for dirt cheap, and he's the best wide receiver in this draft class, I just ask you to look at his box score the last 2 weeks, and that is why I'm going to take him because I think he's actually outscoring Chris Olave probably by what, like 0.3 points per game?
Yeah, but about that. So, but it's crazy. That's the tier that he's in right now is the Tyler Boyd, Amari Cooper, Christian Watson, Jonathan Mingo tier. A lot of, Amari Cooper, we could have put in as ending. We could have, Calvin Ridley just as easy. Some just gross names down here. And a big part of it for Chris Olave is that Derek Carr is 38 of 93 on passes over 10 yards. He is completing really 40% of passes over 10 yards. And you gotta hope it clicks because Chris Olave has seen 9+ targets in 6 of 8 games. He does only have 1 touchdown. So I do think that's why fantasy point wise, he is quite a bit lower than where you want to see him. He's 7th in targets, 1st in route runs, 3rd in air yards, 1st in unrealized air yards, 1st in deep targets, and top 20 in red zone targets. It just comes down to the fact that Derek Carr can't hit him. I mean, he's had a game with 15 targets and he ended with 7 catches for less than 65 yards. I mean, that's just
stupid.
disgusting. And that's just what we've seen, especially since Derek Carr got injured back in week 3. He just hasn't been able to hit him. But if Chris Olave is going to turn around, it should be the next 2 weeks against Chicago and Minnesota. Like, I mean, he's got the matchups where he can do it. I think personally, I'm still trying to buy low on Chris Olave. Just the volume, you got to imagine at some point seeing double-digit targets in 5 of 8 games, 9+ in 6 of 8 games, that it's finally going to come through, that we're finally going to see those fantasy points really start to pour in.
He's just so tough, man, because if Derek Carr can't push the ball down the field
That's
to
true.
him, he's not running the same routes as Michael Thomas. Like, Michael Thomas is taking all these over the middle routes, and like he's still able to hit Rashid Shaheed though.
I know.
Like that's what's infuriating is Rashid Shaheed, 3 for 133 yesterday, 135, is that what it was? 3 for 135 and a score. Like, where is Chris Olave in that? So it's frustrating. But yeah, he's definitely ending, but I think he's one you could. I would still be willing, to buy low on ahead of week 9 and hoping he bounces back here soon. I'll move on to my next ending player, and I hate doing this, but news. I mean, news came out today that makes me feel like I have to put him here. James Cook? Question mark? Like, I think he's ending. And like, I'm concerned. This is an ending. Like, I'm not buying low on James Cook. This is an ending as in like, I might try and get what I can for him. Like, I'm not sure what to make out of his future. Like, here's the thing. He's still clearly the lead back in week 8. I'm not worried about his past. 14 rushing attempts, 67 yards, nearly 5 yards a total, 4.8 yards per carry. Work in the receiving game has been inconsistent. Only 1 reception for 6 yards this last week. However, in week 7, he saw 3 targets. Week 5, he saw 4 targets. But then again, in week 6, he only saw, I don't think he drew a single target in that game. He's only scored 10 plus fantasy points once over the last 4 weeks.
Oof.
And he's finished outside of the top 24 running backs in 3 of those 4 games in 3 of those 4 games. And, the one time he obviously scored 19 fantasy points, he was inside of the top 24. Obviously, no surprise there, but I would typically expect a bounce back coming up here because he's proved all year long he's a lead guy. He can be involved in the receiving game, just hasn't been recently, and I would expect that to change. His usage makes it seem like he has a safe role in this offense, but because of the news we got today, that seems really unclear all of a sudden. Leonard Fournette, he signed with the Buffalo Bills Monday morning. And we all know what Leonard Fournette is good at. Catching the football out of like that's all he did in Tampa Bay. And it's not like he was that efficient of a runner either with Tampa Bay. When they tried to shove him in the A gap, Fournette wasn't averaging 4 yards a carry. He was below 3.5 yards per carry. It was awful. So if he takes any receiving work from James Cook just becomes a pure rusher, and he's not getting the goal line opportunities. He only has 1 rushing touchdown on the year. And every time they get near the goal line, they keep trying to shove it in with Latavius Murray. They keep trying to shove it in with Damian Harris. Damian Harris is actually injured right now, isn't he? They keep trying to shove it in with Latavius Murray. It's just not working. So here's my question. Are you concerned about James Cook moving forward? Are you looking to get off of him? Are you like holding to see what Fournette's role actually is? Like, what are you doing with James Cook? Because I am all of a sudden very pessimistic. And I actually in dynasty leagues that I had him, I actually got out from underneath him mostly because people were willing to buy and give me, pieces that I would be willing to just give up James Cook for and say, you know what, I'm fine cleaning my hands of James Cook if I get good compensation from it, which I did. But what are you doing with James Cook right now? Because I have no clue what the Leonard Fournette signing means. I don't know if he's going to try and be the goal line back for this team since they cannot score with Latavius Murray at the goal line, or like if they just really aren't satisfied with James Cook, which seems kind of silly to me.
Yeah, James Cook is starting to show the worries that I personally had before the season of Josh Allen. Let's be honest, is the best running threat on this team. He is, especially in the red zone. He truly is. And if he's got to pick up 4 yards on 2nd and 4 at the 40-yard line instead of dumping it off to James Cook, he's most likely going to run it. It kind of feels like similar to what we've seen with Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts at times, right? These guys who trust their legs aren't going to dump it off to the wide receivers nearly as much. And I think that's really been impacting, his fantasy production when he's not able to catch the ball. And, the touchdowns just haven't been there. Sean McDermott has proven over and over he's not going to entrust James Cook at the goal line. Latavius Murray has looked as bad as anyone. I mean, he's like Alexander Madison at the goal line. They're both averaging in over 10 attempts under 2 yards per carry inside the 10-yard line. I mean, it's just disgusting, and it's not what you want to see.
No.
And now they go out and get another big back. And like you said, I would be worried if I had James Cook. I don't think it's a Dameon Pierce situation. I don't think it's a Miles Sanders, who we'll talk about next, situation where it's all of a sudden he's going to disappear. I think he probably will finish as a top 24 back, just because I don't think that's that difficult to do this season.
Right.
But these dreams of maybe finding fringe top 12 status, I think those dreams are fading very quickly.
I just don't know what to make, because Leonard Fournette's role is what James Cook does well.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, James Cook is the more efficient runner, which makes me wonder if they are going to try and turn Leonard Fournette into the bruising back that he was early in his career. But the signing just threw me for a loop. And frankly, I think enough managers in your league are going to be on top of, knowing that Leonard Fournette signed with the team. So I don't think they're going to want to bite on James Cook. So I kind of think you're right. I kind of think he's just a hold. You really have to see what Fournette's role is.
Yeah, it depends what you can get for him, right?
Right. Oh, it totally depends what you can get for him. But man, the going just got pretty tough for James Cook, and
yeah,
I would be worried if I was a manager.
For sure.
Let's wrap it up. You brought up who you were going to talk about last, Cameron. We'll close out the episode with Miles Sanders. Why is he ending for you?
It's a core. I mean, I decided that I was going to try and believe.
A silly question, honestly, but
I decided this year I was going to try and believe in him after being very out on him the last couple of years, and it's going to bite me in the butt. And he's coming off the bye, practiced in full, starting on Wednesday. So you're expecting him to start regain some of that role that he kind of started to lose when he was hurt. They did announce Chuba Hubbard as the starter going into the game, but you still assume Miles Sanders is going to be worked in, and he was not. He had 2 attempts on the day.
Yeah.
0 yards, 18% of snaps played, no targets. I mean, this was like when we were reacting to Swift not playing week 1. This is worse than that. This makes, that week look like Swift was super involved. I mean, Miles Sanders had nothing going on. Since week 2, Miles Sanders has had 45 attempts for 118 yards and 2.6 yards per carry. That's over 5 games. That is terrible. I mean, he's averaging less than 30 rushing yards a game.
So bad.
Oh, I mean, what you got to hope that maybe he's still a little banged up, because at this point you can't sell him, right? Nobody is buying Miles Sanders. You could. I mean, he's probably the lowest starting, running top 6 round running back in the game right now. Like, I think you could probably get more for Cam Akers than you could for Miles Sanders at this point. And so you just gotta kind of put him at the end of your bench for maybe another week or 2. But if we see this next week, and then reports coming out that Hubbard is going to maintain the starting role, he's going to be droppable very quickly.
Very quick.
And he was a guy that I didn't think it was going to happen to, right? You follow in the money. He's going to be the highest paid backup running back, easily in the next couple of weeks if this keeps up. And so, man, there is no upside for Miles Sanders, and I don't think you can sell him. And I am holding the bag in our redraft league that we are in, and I honestly don't know what to do. And it feels gross to even have him on your roster.
What if I gave you a pack of Fruit Gushers for Miles Sanders?
See, I mean, it's honestly probably worth it, because Fruit Gushers are going to have the same amount of points as him in a couple of weeks. It's just like,
it might ridiculous. Be, and you get an appetizing snack out of it.
And this is why you always listen to your gut, right? I have been gung-ho about being out on Miles Sanders every single year. And the one year I'm like, ooh, maybe the role is going to change. Nope, he's still the same guy. So,
I mean, the role was forecasted to change. I mean, it was him. They paid him to be the guy.
I know.
Staley said they were going to get him more involved in the passing attack. Just like Doug Peterson said they were going to use multiple running backs in Jacksonville and not give Travis Etienne the same freaking workload and even more than last year. So, I'm with you, though. Miles Sanders is just as good of a bag of chips at this point. But if we don't see change in the next 2 weeks, even next week, like, he becomes droppable instantly. Don't even think twice about it. And frankly, if you wanted to drop him this week, I might push back a little bit and say one more week, but if you really need the roster spot, if you need somebody in your lineup, then like Miles Sanders might be the first to go for me. I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, I'd agree.
That wraps out trending and ending players after week 8. Cameron, anything you want to add to close out the episode? Anything we missed?
I don't think so. You just watch the news this week. I think there's going to be a lot coming out on quarterbacks missing time. Trade deadline comes out, on Tuesday. So probably when you're watching this episode. So make sure you're watching the football news.
Yeah, make sure you're keeping your eye on players changing teams. Obviously, for fantasy, you're more concerned about the offensive side of the football, but could change for matchup second half of the season if we see some defensive players on the move. Leonard Williams already moving from, or Dexter Lawrence, excuse me, moving from the. No, it was Leonard Williams.
Leonard Williams. Yep.
It was Leonard Williams. I was right. Changing teams already, solidifying Seattle's defensive front. So, yeah, just keep an eye on those trades today, really, because the trade deadline is approaching very, very quickly here. Keep your eye on those trades. And again, just because we say a player is trending or ending does not mean it is permanent. It's just a nice way of saying, hey, this player's stock is up, and you know what? These players' stocks are going down. Ending does not always mean ditch them while you can, even though if it's Miles Sanders, that's probably the case. Thanks for tuning into this episode. I'm at Lucas Wenzel on Twitter, CamLawFFF for Cameron. Follow the main fellas accounts as well. FF Fellas on Twitter, the FF Fellas on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas on Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. And if you're watching here on YouTube, thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, turn on those notifications. You'll be alerted when all of our new episodes are up. Same with the podcast as well. Leave a nice little review if you don't mind to put a lot of time into this. We appreciate you all listening over on the podcast platform. That's our baby. I think a lot of people don't recognize that the podcast was our baby, and then everything else just kind of happened. We're like, all right, I guess we're like full out content creators now, not just podcasters. So, but thanks again for tuning in. We appreciate your support over there. Those of you who have been listening for a long time. We'll be back later this week, giving you start, sit matchups at every position, at every matchup in the NFL this upcoming week. So make sure you tune in on Thursday for that. Until then, stay safe. Enjoy the holiday. We'll see you later this week. Deuces.